Boom! What's going on, aviators, and welcome to another episode of the Aviator Podcast. My name is Andrew, I'm your host, and I'm joined today by Aaron, aka Spartan Republic. Say hi.
What's up?
Hey, so Aaron doesn't have his video on, and today I just felt like sporting my hard case helmet. But today we're going to be going over a number of topics, but primarily what I really wanted to talk about was the Bad Batch and the Return of the Clone Wars. So, Aaron, let me go ahead and open up this discussion. What was your favorite part of the first one or two episodes of the Clone Wars? Oh, and just so you know, there's going to be spoilers in here. So if you haven't watched the Clone Wars, close out now. This is your first and only warning.
Yeah, there's spoilers, so click off. Basically, I mean, my first impressions, my favorite parts were like the animation, dude. Like the lighting. Like,
Oh, you're
it
so
was
right.
such an improvement. Honestly, seeing Cody again, you know.
Dude, you are obsessed with that guy.
I mean, dude, he's like one of the best clones out there, man. But overall, seeing the characters back again, doing what they do usually, destroying the clankers, were pretty. You know, it was heartwarming.
Just like old times,
Felt like,
huh?
yeah, just like old times. Like overall, it just felt very like I felt like I was back in 2008. That's all I'm gonna say.
Dude, it's super nostalgic. Like this is where this entire business, it started because of the Clone Wars. So it's really like a dream come true to have it come back. And honestly, like these episodes, the animation quality, you can see like a lot of the refinement that the animators experienced from Star Wars Rebels, but then it was brought back into the Clone Wars setting. So it just really and coming from the rough animation that we saw in those unfinished episodes, it's a huge difference, and it's a great difference too.
100%.
Yeah, honestly,
Yeah.
I was blown away by it. Even like they had the particle physics of when. Now I'm just getting into all this technical crap, but like when the particle physics for when they were sliding down the hill, and you see that was kind of like glass shards going toward the camera.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
small things like that
surprised.
make a huge difference in the animation quality. It was crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
But one of the things that I think stood out to me a lot was the theme about it. So in the first episode of the Clone Wars returning in season 7, at the beginning of the Clone Wars, it always has like that theme that they put during the title sequence, and the theme
Like
was
the fortune
embrace
cookie?
others for their differences, for that makes you whole. And I was like, dang, that hits deep, honestly, and I think that's really what the Star Wars universe is or the Star Wars content creators in particular are focusing on in the sequels and in the comics and the High Republic and things like that. They're really exploring different areas where the Star Wars universe hasn't really touched on before, and even political topics that may or may not like set off some people's political hot buttons. But I think honestly that it's all moving into a good direction of inclusivity.
Yeah, I agree. Like, with a lot of the Clone Wars, like, I'm gonna call them fortune cookies because that's kind of what they are. There's a lot of good hidden and overall inspiring messages that do apply to everyday life. Whether it be like in terms of war or something simple as home, you know. That's why I love about the Clone Wars, because yeah, it's a kids show. Yes, it's meant for kids. It's always intense battles, but at the end of the day, like, a lot of the characters that we know and love, like, share similar battles and, like, overall just conflicts that we kind of do have here in the real life. And, that's just something to really consider overall.
Yeah, I really like how within filmmaking or content publishing of any kind, especially when you're at like a scale of like Disney, you can incorporate themes and messages into entertainment that like multiple people can enjoy. I think that the Star Wars universe and the Star Wars content creators as a whole are really kind of embracing these little these little messages that they can put into not just the Clone Wars episodes, but you see themes and motifs in The Last Jedi and in the sequel stuff and in the comic book series that they're doing, and a lot of it just kind of tells more backstory in different ways that speak to different audiences. Like for instance, if I were to tell a message to my little brother and I were to tell that same message to my sister, it would mean something different for those two people. So if you can bring like an overall entertaining, what's the term for it? Just a medium, yeah, like an entertaining medium that multiple people from different backgrounds can enjoy. They can all receive that same message from the same piece of media. So that's, I think, Lucasfilm and the Disney executives are doing a pretty good job at really including other people's perspectives in the media that they do. So with that said, all the different Bad Batch members, they have such differing personalities. You know, like Crosshair he seems a little condescending and a little like stuck up. And then you have Wrecker, all he wants to do is just blow things up. Tech is kind of just indifferent. He just wants to do the techie stuff. But you know, what do you think your favorite Bad Batcher was, Aaron?
Honestly, my favorite Bad Batch member has to be Hunter. Um, Mainly because he's like the clone Rambo.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he looks like Rambo a lot. But besides that, physical aspect, really, what I like about Hunter is that he knows the differences of when to follow orders and not when to when to mess around.
Kind of like step out of the box.
Yeah. You know, overall, I mean, yeah, he's the leader. He's like the leader of the Bad Batch, but like he knows what to do in type situations, and I think that's like pretty good as sort of like for a leader, honestly. Overall, I mean, I like Hunter. Like he's pretty cool for the most part.
Yeah, that's a pretty good reason why. You know, I can definitely see a lot of like Hunter's kind of traits in you because you're a pretty perceptive person, Aaron. Like when we talk about like different situations, whether it's in the team chat or just kind of on a personal level, you always like to kind of get the other side of things so that you're not really one-sided. And I feel like Hunter's really good at understanding both sides of the spectrum. You know, the Bad Batchers, they want this independence, but then at the same time, they're military personnel that need to follow orders to a certain extent. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
It kind of ties into you well. I agree with that.
Thanks. Because there was one example where, this in episode 2 where, Hunter's helping out Rex. Well, actually, more like episodes 1 and 2 of season 7, where like Hunter understands why Rex is trying to look for Echo, because it's like trying to find your best friend that you haven't seen in years. So it's understandable why. And him and Bad Batch, they travel along, and they finally find Echo, and he has his doubts too that Echo might be dead, but it just shows that Hunter cares, even for the quote unquote regs.
Yeah, there's a certain level of empathy there, despite them not really sharing anything other than the fact that they're fighting for the same thing.
Yeah, and I think that's like honestly what's cool about him. He's very sympathetic of all
And
his brothers.
empathetic, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gathered that a lot. I think of all the Bad Batch members, as much as I admire the leadership qualities of Hunter, I gotta say my favorite guy's got to be Tech, because
He's pretty cool.
he's not that he doesn't strike me like Crosshair or Wrecker is, where he doesn't feel superior to anyone else. He also doesn't really like to involve himself with the politics of, or just like the semantics of wordage or whatever. It's just kind of like he knows a lot of things. He's a very like trivia kind of facts oriented person, and at its core, I think he's just like someone who really likes knowledge, and he's like a nerd in that sense. So that really kind of speaks to me, because this entire database of like clone trooper decals that I have is just like my knowledge of things and my nerdiness of it. I'm just barfing on you guys like, hey guys, new products, new clones, even though they're old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like
He reminds me of Echo a lot.
What's
He
up?
does. He reminds me of Echo a lot.
Yeah, almost like how he was like talking about the reg manuals and things like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he has not a certain level. He has a very noticeable level of independence, where it's like he knows how to take care of himself. He doesn't need to be told what to do or how to do it. He just knows his part and how to fulfill it, and he's very adaptable on the fly. And I think that's a really admirable trait in and of itself.
Yeah, unless like Wrecker like smashes down a door.
Yeah, and it's not to put down the like the personalities of Crosser and Wrecker, but I just feel like those personality traits in Tech and Hunter they really kind of like resonate with me, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So what they this that the message that they had at the beginning of the Clone Wars was or at that episode, embrace others for their differences, for that makes you whole. Like I think Hunter really does embody that, and showing the differences of the Batch members. Despite the fact that they're clones, they are genetically different. So they are really different people, but
Yeah,
they can
that's
still
true.
get past their differences and move forward toward the same goal. And I think that's really awesome. But that theme. Do you think that theme also applies in concepts like the prequels or the sequels even?
Um, yeah, I think it does overall. Like I'm trying to, I forgot like what the overall meaning was.
What the overall what was? I'm sorry.
Like the overall meaning.
Of the message, the
Quote.
theme.
Yeah.
Embrace others for their differences, for that makes you whole.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, for the most part, that quote's pretty true. With the sequels and the prequels in the original trilogy too. Because like in the original trilogy, you got you had when in the Katina scene where like Obi-Wan and Luke go to the Katina, right? They're trying to find a ship to go to Alderaan. They have to deal with the
Scum
type
and
of
villainy.
yeah, type of scummy and like kind of stuck up personality of Han Solo. But even like they set aside their differences throughout Episode 4. They throughout the end and onward to like Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. Like they're friends at the end of the day because they
Despite being
accept each
super
other for who
different.
they are. Yeah, because they accept who they are. You know.
Yeah, and I honestly like how there is such a stark difference between the original trilogy, the prequels, and the sequels, because now it's kind of like fragmented the Star Wars fan base as a whole. Like, are you a prequels fan? Or are you a sequels fan? But honestly, like I only really think there's one type of Star Wars fan, and it's a Star Wars fan. So
Yeah, I
like
agree.
regardless as to which era within the Star Wars galaxy that these characters are being portrayed, like I said, different messages and different forms of entertainment speak to different people. But at the end of the day, it's a bunch of people from a different background working together for the same goal. And
Yeah, because you really never know where somebody comes from.
mhm.
And they like just try to help them out. Work together for for goals that you want to do.
Yeah, and what something that I see is kind of like a common trait is like the fact that they're all seeking or they're all fighting a common enemy, and I think that in and of itself also helps to unite people across different backgrounds. One of the things that I wish that Star Wars fans as a whole would kind of incorporate and accept into their life is that the common enemy that we all are kind of fighting that would unite us together is negativity. And it's funny because in a way the Star Wars franchise has become the very thing it swore to destroy, where
Yeah, really.
it's bred a lot of negativity because of the fragmented fan base. But if the fan base were to understand, like, hey, this is Star Wars. It doesn't matter how it should be or how it was in the past, or if like the new canon destroyed the old canon. Like really, at its core, did you enjoy Star Wars? If you did not enjoy Episode 6 or Episode 7 or 8, does it necessarily destroy the fact that you enjoyed Episode 3 or 4?
Yeah.
I
I
just
think
really hope that people could see past the surface value that the film didn't go the way that they wanted to, and
right.
really appreciate the effort that went behind it.
Yeah. I think that yeah, I think it came from like George Lucas like not bringing people's expectations from the original trilogy back when they did the Phantom Menace because George wanted to create his own story, and that's why there's such a division between fans.
And then
It's like, oh
when Disney
no,
took
my
over, they're
trilogy's
telling their own
better.
story.
Yeah, and it's like the same thing over again.
And I actually think that the newly announced High Republic actually it allows that creative freedom where there's not an existing movie or existing
Yeah,
canon to kind of like direct how the thing should go. I feel like a
yeah,
lot of the
because it's
people
a,
are super salty. Sorry, I'm cutting you off. My bad. But I feel like
you're good.
a lot of people are just super salty that about the sequels because it did not go the way the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy went. They expected from the get go for it to be something that it wasn't. So the High Republic, because it's a clean slate, there wasn't even any previous canon in that. Old Republic canon doesn't, or Legends doesn't even apply anymore. It's a completely clean slate, and I think it allows the creators to really explore these new topics without the fan base having an expectation of how it should be.
Yeah, I agree. What I do like about that is that, especially with the High Republic, like especially when it's gonna be created with, at least to my knowledge, only with comics and books, because that kind of brings me back when like Legends used to do that. So, because what I love about Star Wars really, and what is the reason why I love Star Wars so much, is the connections that it brings within the books and the movies.
Hmm.
It's like Legends did such a good job with that, especially for like the prequel comics and books, even original trilogy as well, because they brought everything together in a full circle.
Yeah.
And I hope High Republic can do that, and I definitely think it can.
And
Um,
I
but
have a feeling it'll give some strong background to characters that we love, but at the same time, it's a pure breeding ground for just new characters
yeah,
and new content that isn't necessarily tied into existing characters. But they'll bring in some familiarity, like Master Yoda will probably show up at some point. You know,
yeah, probably.
and I
Or like
think
the ancient Sith.
yeah, and I think that familiarity is a breath of fresh air. Because when you're exploring something brand new, you definitely want to have something kind of like, aside from the aesthetic, something that makes it very recognizably Star Wars.
Yeah, and I hope that, and I, well, not even hope, but like I'm pretty sure like High Republic will bring in depth into the Star Wars universe, because I feel like that's something that Star Wars has been really lacking lately, and that's like they're not really bringing more depth um into the story, because they can like, because what Legends did really was that they brought in a lot of depth, because like offside the movies,
And it
like they just
really,
kind of
yeah, like
ignored
there
the
was
movies
like for
and
there
they
was
did their
an
own thing.
and there was another like I think it was published pretty recently, but there was a comic with Tarkin, and the in the comic book series, there were it was him talking to the Death Star gunners and how he wanted people who could not hesitate to blow up a planet. And he
Oh yeah,
talked to one of the Death Star gunners who was from Alderaan when they blew up Alderaan, and so they went through that iconic scene in Episode 4 where Tarkin blows up Alderaan in front of Leia, but it was
yeah,
in the perspective of the Death Star gunner, not necessarily of Tarkin or of Leia, but the comic book was like showing the emotions of the Death Star gunner as that was happening. So it kind of adds a lot more depth, as you were saying, and more gravity to moments that we already saw. Like now there are these, you can really kind of feel this more human aspect to the Empire, where stormtroopers weren't just robots. Some of them actually had feelings and opinions, and how those feelings and opinions got snuffed out by people like Tarkin, who want nothing but order and obedience.
agreed. Yeah,
But with that said, there's a lot of expectations that people are already having of how the High Republic should be. But honestly, I think having these expectations of like how it should go, that causes people's opinions to be skewed. When I first watched The Last Jedi, I had bought into so many theories that in my head I thought like this is how it's going to go, and then Luke literally said this is not going to go the way that you think, and then it didn't go the way that I thought, and then I was upset at first. I got over it, but a lot of people never got over it, and it's because they
yeah, same.
expected something and it didn't happen. So if you I'm not saying to necessarily lower your expectations, but don't expect everything to be how you want it to be. Expect storytelling, expect good visuals, and expect like Star Wars universe. Because if you and then
Yeah,
just kind of enjoy the ride instead of thinking and dictating in your mind how you think the ride should go.
yeah. I mean, like like for the Last Jedi, for me personally, it didn't feel like a Star Wars film at all.
You
I
think
felt
so?
like it was doing like its own thing, really.
Hmm.
But you know, it is what it is. Like you can't do much about it now. Like like you said, it's just a film. Enjoy it while you can, really, whether it upsets you or not.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, did you like episode 3 any less because you didn't like episode 8 that much?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Wait, what? No.
I was like, wait a minute, hold on. No, because like when I go back and I watch episode 3, I love it just as much as when I first saw it. And like
Same.
just because the canon got something was added to it that wasn't necessarily what I expected, it doesn't mean that it didn't ruin the franchise because
Right.
the other films are still just as enjoyable to watch as they were in the past. And I think all this really ties back into that theme of the Clone Wars episode, embracing differences to really, to be whole. Because if you can just set aside the fact that it's not what you expect it to be, and you can embrace the fact that it is different, it becomes so much more enjoyable. Like now, I can watch The Last Jedi for what it is, as opposed to what it wasn't. And if people can, view the Star Wars franchise and other people in general for what they are and not what they're not, I think that'll go a long way to just kind of making life itself more enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's like, you know, throughout life, like, you can't really expect things either the way you want it to be or how you planned it. Because, you know, life can always throw, you know, many things that you never expect, but, you know, you gotta settle with it and deal with it
Hmm.
and just accept it for what it is.
Yeah, and not just accepting it and dealing with it, but really incorporating it into how you act. For instance, like if you were to have something negative happen to you, like God forbid, you get into a car accident, right?
Yeah,
Instead of just being angry about the fact that it's a car accident and your car ride wasn't smooth, you can kind of like prepare for the future. Okay, well, next time I know I need to be more careful in this area, or maybe I need to be more attentive when I drive and not do something that would cause the accident. So that's like that's a step past accepting what happened and then moving into like changing your lifestyle to really embrace these changes. So
yeah,
the same
I
goes
can.
for when you meet new people. Sometimes people are not the way that you think, and you can either sit there and hold a grudge, or you can just kind of like adapt in your life, and then know how to really surround yourself with people who actually matter, people who care about you, and people who you can care about, in that same regard.
Yeah, I agree. Because one that actually reminds me of something. Because like there would be times where like I'm discussing with some people about how like you know the school system, not school system, but like school services, like you know, like oh, I'm trying to think of an example, like oh, like the school food sucks, right?
It does.
Yeah, but like you know, at least like because you know, there's always a program to give like free lunch tickets, right? So I'm always thinking like, yes, like the school food's not as good as what you expect your mom to make at home. You know, because you know, nothing's ever gonna top your mom's cooking. You know, that's his
I agree.
home style cooking. Yeah, but you know what I think also is that like you know at least there's a service to give you food instead of you starving at school. You know,
Yeah, and
and
that's like really looking on the
that's
bright
like
side
my
of
two
things.
cents.
No, you're absolutely
Yeah,
right. Yeah, you can always look at something for the surface value of what it isn't, or you could look at something a little deeper and understand what it is. In the very least, like we have this opportunity to have school food, whether or not it's something that you really enjoy. It's a privilege. And it's something that is really it's something that a lot of people don't have. So
exactly. Yeah.
and I
You know,
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, like, no matter what type of situation you're in, you know, just overall accept that like it could be worse, and that other people may have it worse.
And then just make
You
the
know.
best of what you have.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's always an opportunity to switch things around. There always is, because nothing lasts forever, really. That's what I believe.
the way I see it, 100%. To add on to that, the way I see life in general is that there are only two things that are guaranteed: 1 + 1 = 2, and people die. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like if you kind of expect something to be guaranteed when it's not, then when things go sour, which eventually, in the cycle of life things do, when things go sour, you gotta be prepared for it. So, and that's why if you prepare for the worst, but strive for the best, I think that's kind of like the best way to be able to actively deal with situations that come up, whether good or bad.
Yeah, that's true.
Alrighty, Aaron. Well, that's really all. The only thoughts that I had about this, just kind of wrapping up. Just really, like, take another look at that opening quote for the season 7 premiere, and how and just embracing differences.
Yeah, because the thing that the Clone Wars did really well was that like they were giving children, at least like about our age, like 10 years ago,
That's
like the
children to me.
message. Yeah.
I'm still a
That
child,
like, yeah,
just deep down.
you know, yeah, same. Like they gave like I don't think ever any other show really did this where like they gave life lessons to children
Mm-hmm.
because sooner or later they might remember that quote and see how much that does relate to their type of situation or life they're in. Because it's true.
100%. Alrighty, Aaron. Well, I'm gonna go ahead, and I think that it's time to wrap up the podcast. If you guys,
Alright.
if you guys in the, for you guys who are listening, thank you for joining in, and everyone who's watching on YouTube. I know that there's a visual here that you can't see if you're listening on Spotify or Anchor, but next time we do a podcast, I'm gonna do it in full armor, so not just the helmet, but the full armor set, just for the fun of
yes.
it, because putting on plastic armor and being a dork is one of my life goals. And
Yeah.
so once again, just really thankful for everything, and thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys have anything that you'd like to add to the to the podcast, go ahead and send a message to the Podcast Ideas channel in our Aviator Discord, link in the description below, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Later.
Peace.